Battle through the heavens, grand world. Chapter 108. Death was certain. Xiao Yan immediately reacted when he saw Bai Zhulang suddenly rushing towards Duruoxi. He gritted his teeth and cursed himself for being too careless. He stomped on the ground and a trace of wind energy emerged from his feet. His body had already rushed towards Bai Zhulang. Sensing that Xiao Yan was rushing towards him, a trace of viciousness emerged on Bai Zhulang's face. He bit the tip of his tongue and spat out a strand of blood essence that instantly covered his entire body. At the same time, Bai Zhulang's speed also increased exponentially. Swoosh! In a split second, Bai Zhulang had already grabbed Duruoxi's arm and pulled her up to block in front of him. "Kid, if you take another step forward, I will immediately kill her." Bai Zhulang furiously roared. At the same time, a hand had already grabbed Duruoxi's snow-white neck. With the former's strength, as long as he slightly exerted force, Duruoxi would die. Damn it! Xiao Yan, who was about to reach Bai Zhulang, had no choice but to stop. He looked at the sneering Bai Zhulang with a cold expression and said coldly, "If you kill her, I will bury you with all the people of Martial Strength Hall." "Haha, it doesn't matter. I admit that I can't beat you. Since that's the case, I will let you suffer a little." Bai Zhulang slightly exerted force on her hand. Duruoxi's face immediately flushed red. No matter how hard she struggled, it was useless. "Uncle, put her down." Bai Lufeng, who had reacted, almost went crazy when he saw this. He shouted at the top of his lungs. "Shut up, bastard, who has raised you? Have you forgotten who you are? After I take care of this kid, you're next." Bai Zhulang looked at Bai Lufeng with a gloomy expression and said in a dense tone. After saying that, he looked at Xiao Yan who was not far away and said with a smile, "Take out 1 million monarch crystals. You will be responsible for collecting this woman's corpse." As he spoke, Bai Zhulang raised his arm and lifted Duruoxi by her neck. Duruoxi's 4 limbs were powerless to struggle in the air, but they were useless. "Bai Zhulang, to think that you are still the hall master of the Wuwei Hall. Aren't you afraid of the mockery of the people in Black Region?" Bai Lufeng's heart almost shattered when he saw Duruoxi struggling helplessly. He looked at Bai Zhulang with bloodshot eyes and shouted at the top of his voice. "Mockery! What a joke! Who dares to laugh at me? My nephew. You are still too young. In the Black Region, only those who use unscrupulous means can live for a long time." Bai Zhulang sneered and looked at the angry and calm expressions of the crowd below the stage. He said faintly and then looked at the indifferent Xiao Yan. He smiled and said, "Little guy, have you thought about it?" "Humph." Xiao Yan heard this and sneered. He flipped his palm and a golden monarch crystal card appeared in his hand. Seeing the sudden appearance of the golden monarch crystal card, Bai Zhulang's breathing became hurried. He increased the strength in his hand, causing Duruoxi to struggle even more. "Ruoxi." Bai Lufeng could not stand it anymore. He jumped up and rushed towards Bai Zhulang crazily as if he had lost his mind. The origin monarch ki in his body surged out and formed a blue python in his hand. He spat out his ferocious tongue and rushed towards Bai Zhulang. "Bastard!" Bai Zhulang was furious when he saw Bai Lufeng attacking him in front of so many people. He smiled coldly and instantly pulled Duruoxi towards the direction of Bai Lufeng's attack. Woo! Bai Lufeng was shocked when he saw Duruoxi suddenly appear in the path of the giant python's attack. He hastily let out a furious roar and forcefully cut off the connection between the origin monarch ki and the giant python. Awoo! After losing the origin monarch ki, the giant python let out a miserable shriek. Its body, which was dozens of meters long, instantly disappeared into the air. Bai Lufeng, who had forcefully cut off the attack, also received a strong counterforce. The origin monarch ki in his body rolled and his blood and ki tumbled. He couldn't help but spurt out a mouthful of blood, and his face turned a little pale. "Little bastard, you're still too tender." Looking at the weakened Xiao Yan, Bai Zhulang revealed a cruel smile. Then, he looked at Xiao Yan and stared at the golden monarch crystal card in Xiao Yan's hand. He said anxiously, "Don't play any tricks. Throw it over to me. Release her immediately when you get the monarch crystal." Xiao Yan said coldly. His voice contained a trace of killing intent that was difficult to detect. "You don't have the right to order me now. I'll count to 3. Otherwise, this woman will die in front of you." Bai Zhulang looked at Xiao Yan and said in the same cold tone. Don't talk so much nonsense. Here you go. Xiao Yan smiled casually and threw the golden monarch crystal card at Bai Julang. 1 million. Just like that. For a woman. Most of the people below were cruel and merciless. Naturally, they would not show compassion to women. When they saw Xiao Yan take out 1 million monarch crystals for a woman, they found it hard to believe. Ah, the pale Bai Lufeng looked at Xiao Yan, who threw out 1 million monarch crystals carelessly. A trace of loneliness flashed across his eyes. After that, he laughed at himself. He thought about how he hesitated for a long time, but he didn't have the courage of this young man. He opened his mouth and didn't know what to say. That's right. Seeing the golden monarch crystal card flying towards him, Bai Julang laughed loudly. He stretched out his empty hand, and the suction force increased exponentially. It was about to suck the golden monarch crystal card over. Xiao Yan's expression didn't change as he watched Bai Julang's action. When the monarch crystal card was about to fall into the latter's hand, Xiao Yan's eyes suddenly focused. An invisible soul force instantly surged out from between his brows, and pushed the golden monarch crystal card to the side in an instant. After grabbing empty air, Bai Julang was stunned for a moment. Then, he subconsciously threw himself at the monarch crystal card, which was only a few feet away from him. He could not help but loosen his grip on Du Ruoxi's neck. At this moment, Xiao Yan's body suddenly moved. His enormous soul force was like a sharp sword. He took advantage of the time when Bai Julang temporarily relaxed his defense and stabbed towards the center of the latter's brows. At the same time, he used the 9 rotation wind technique to its limit. Everyone could only see a blurry black shadow flashing across the stage. In the next moment, Xiao Yan had already appeared in front of Bai Julang. The instant Xiao Yan appeared in front of him, Bai Julang's expression changed drastically. He immediately abandoned the golden monarch crystal card that was right in front of him and pulled Du Ruoxi in front of him. Buzz! Just as Bai Julang moved, a fierce and vast soul force struck his soul like a heavy hammer. It made a buzzing sound, and the intense pain instantly spread throughout his body. Bai Julang's movement couldn't help but slow down. Boom! Using this moment to block, Xiao Yan's fist was like a shooting star chasing the moon. It hit Bai Julang's abdomen without hesitation, and the huge force even caused the air to vibrate. Puff! Xiao Yan mercilessly hit Bai Julang's abdomen. Bai Julang was in so much pain that his liver almost cracked. An indescribable pain covered his entire body, causing him to feel dizzy. The strength in his body quickly faded, and he could not help but loosen his grip on Du Ruoxi's neck. Dong! Du Ruoxi, who had lost her balance, powerlessly fell to the ground. Her face was pale, and she coughed violently. There were obvious traces of blood on her snow-white neck. Ruoxi! Bai Lufeng hurriedly pounced forward when he saw this. He hugged Du Ruoxi and rubbed her pale face with a heartache. Du Ruoxi struggled to open her eyes and looked at Bai Lufeng in front of her. Her beautiful large eyes involuntarily revealed a smile. Soon, tears flowed out of her eyes. Bai Julang was also sent flying to the edge of the martial arts arena. He panted intensely and coughed out a lot of blood every time he coughed. He looked at Xiao Yan, who was standing on the stage, and his face was filled with shock. He could not even take a punch from Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan, thank you. Du Ruoxi lifted her head from Bai Lufeng's arms and looked at Xiao Yan, who was standing beside her. She spoke in a sincere tone. Bai Lufeng also raised his head and looked at Xiao Yan. His heart was filled with mixed feelings. He didn't know if he should thank Xiao Yan or not. You must be Bai Lufeng. Bai Julang must die today, and the martial strength hall must also be annexed by the Tuanji gang. If you are dissatisfied, you can come and fight me. If you are convinced, you and Sister Ruoxi will be in love with each other. In the future, both of you will be in charge of the Tuanji gang. After saying that, Xiao Yan expressionlessly walked towards Bai Julang, who was struggling to get up. The killing intent on his body was revealed without a doubt. Behind him, Bai Lufeng was hugging Du Ruoxi tightly, and his expression was full of struggle. Chapter end. Hi guys, please like, comment, share, and subscribe.